Hi there guys, I'm Nikhil from GreedyTech, and in this video, I'll be doing a quick unboxing of the Vivo V19 and giving you a complete review of the Vivo V19 after 2 months of usage. So here's the box, and let's talk about the basic information first. Vivo has launched this phone both online and offline. It's available in two variants. Base variant starts at 25,000 rupees for 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. And the next variant is priced at 28,000 rupees for 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. It's available in two colors, Mystic Silver and Piano Black. We have the high-end variant in Piano Black color with 256GB of storage. Now with that said, let's have a quick physical overview of the box. So this is how the box looks on the front. We have the Vivo branding at the top and V19 at the bottom. By the way, this is the latest phone in the V series. This is like a flagship from Vivo in India. Usually they don't sell with flagship processors like the Snapdragon 865. So this is the best that you can get from Vivo, around 30,000 rupees. Anyway, this is how the front of the box looks, and we have a quick preview of the punch hole design. So that's there or there. In the top right corner, we have the storage information, 8GB plus 256GB. On the right side, we have IPL related branding. On the left side, it's the same once again. On the back side, we have some of the highlighting features, which are mainly dual eye view display, that's the punch hole design, 32 megapixel AI super night selfie camera, 33 watts fast charging, and a Qualcomm Snapdragon 712 processor. Following that are some more specifications, IMEI number, and so on. Now without any further delays, let me just unbox it. Now let's open it up. So that's the lid. Next we have a pretty interesting pattern going on over here. This probably signifies the camera, and at the bottom it says V19. Let's open it up in this way. So let's see what it is. So first we have the charging cable. This is a USB Type-C charging cable, and following that is a SIM card ejector and some documentation. Let's put everything aside. Next we have a soft silicone case. Looks pretty good. Some IMEI number stickers, and following that is the phone itself. Let me just put that aside for now. We have another cardboard separator. Next we have the 33 watts flash charge from Vivo. So that's what they're branding it as. And finally we have the iPhone style earphones. And that's all we get inside the box. Now let me just put everything aside and come back to the phone. Now let me just remove this plastic wrapping or just slide it off. So guys, this is how the phone looks on the front, and this is how the phone looks on the back. Now let's have a physical overview. On the back, this phone has a 3D curved glass. It's probably fiberglass, I'm not pretty sure. And for this black color, it has a complete mirror finish, so there's no gradient or any deviation going on. On the top left corner, we have the camera module with a quad camera setup and a dual LED flash. At the bottom, we have just the Vivo branding. On the front, we get a massive display with punch hole design with dual selfie cameras. This design once again looks pretty similar to the Samsung S10 Plus. By the way, display is also protected by a 2.5D curved glass, and you also get a free screen guard pre-applied. Now for the sides, on the right side it has the power and volume buttons. They are made of metal and they have a nice clicky feel to them. I wish they were slightly more elevated. At the top we have the secondary microphone for noise cancellation. On the left side it has just the SIM card tray housing 2 nano SIM slots along with a dedicated SD card slot. Finally, at the bottom, we have the 3.5mm audio jack, followed by the primary microphone, USB Type-C charging port, and the speaker grill. Now this phone has a thickness of 8.5mm and it kinda looks thick and weighs about 186 grams. With that said, this phone doesn't feel all that heavy. Especially considering all the phones that are launched these days, this phone is definitely pretty sleek, kinda small form factor, and it is kinda light in hand. Now let me just try out this case. So guys, this is how the phone looks with the case on. It's just a soft silicone case, it doesn't give you any drop protection. It can just prevent smudges and give you some extra grip. On the back there is a slightly raised lip for the camera module. So even when you place your phone directly on a flat surface, camera module is not directly in contact with the surface. So it does give you some protection, and even on a flat surface with the case on, phone doesn't wobble. Even on the front, there is a tiny bit of raised lip and it does give some protection, so that even when you place your phone directly on its face, display is not in contact with the surface. With all that said, this case isn't that great. It may be good for a few days, so I would suggest you to get a better case as soon as possible. Now let me just remove this case. Now these are the complete specifications of this phone. On the rear, this phone has a quad camera setup with a 48 megapixel primary camera with f1.79 aperture, followed by an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera with f2.2 aperture, followed by a 2 megapixel macro camera with f2.4 aperture, and finally a 2 megapixel camera for taking portrait shots. For selfies, you get a 32 megapixel primary camera with f2.04 aperture and an 8 megapixel super wide angle selfie camera with f2.28 aperture and 105-degree field of view. On the front, you get a decently large 6.44-inch Super AMOLED Full HD Plus display with 800 nits of brightness and HDR10 support. Under the hood, it sports a Snapdragon 712 processor with Adreno 616 GPU with 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. Right out of the box, it will be running FunTouch OS based on Android 10. Powering this device is a 4500 mAh battery that supports flash charging up to 33 watts. You can get up to 70% of charge in under 40 minutes. So that's definitely super fast charging. So guys, those were the specifications. Now let me turn on the phone and set it up and come back to you in a second. Once we turn on the phone, this is how the phone looks, and right out of the box, out of that 256GB of storage, we get about 239GB of space for our user apps and user data, and out of that 8GB of RAM, we get about 5GB of RAM free right out of the box. Now let's start off the review with physical overview. I must say this phone definitely has the best form factor, overall dimensions, throughout all the phones that are currently available in this price segment. It's neither too thick nor thin, and it's not too light or too heavy. It has the right amount of weight to it, and even the weight distribution is pretty decent. It has a pretty massive screen, 6.4 inch, and because of that aspect ratio, it still fits pretty perfectly in the hand. Overall, I just want to say this phone fits pretty comfortably in the hand and it feels great to use single-handedly. Even the buttons are sufficiently elevated, they have a nice clicky feel to them, and you have an in-display fingerprint scanner which is super fast. You can easily access it with your thumb, and as I've said, when it comes to the physical aspects of the phone, it is definitely one of the best phones in this price segment. Now let's talk about the hardware. Well, as any decent phone in this price segment, this phone comes with all the basic sensors, nothing's missing. Just like the previous tradition, it also comes with face unlock and fingerprint scanner, well, in-display fingerprint scanner, and they are super fast. Like best in the price segment, once again, they are super fast, and so far I've been using it for more than 10 days and I didn't have any issues with consistency or reliability or the speed. By the way, this phone also has a dedicated SD card slot, so if you want extra storage, there's always an option for that. So once again, in the hardware department, you are getting everything and you're rarely missing out on anything. Now when it comes to display, this phone definitely has one of the best displays out there. It has a brand new 6.44-inch AMOLED panel with Full HD Plus resolution with that punch hole design housing dual cameras for selfies, and even that punch hole design is pretty small and the cameras are almost to the edge. There's almost no bezel at all. And overall bezels of the display are also pretty slim. They're not as slim as maybe some of the competition phones. Overall, it is pretty satisfying. Now when it comes to picture quality, as it's an AMOLED display, it definitely delivers you saturated colors and true blacks. As this is also a brand new OLED panel, you also get HDR10 Plus support, and this display also has a peak brightness of 1200 nits, which is pretty rare to see in phones in this price segment. So the display is really great and definitely one of the best displays that you can get in this price segment. Now when it comes to cameras, this phone definitely has a lot of them, like a quad camera setup on the rear and a dual camera setup on the front. It's loaded with cameras. And when it comes to camera performance, it does deliver. Well, strictly speaking, it does deliver quite a lot, but specifically to the price. Now these are some sample shots. In most of the pictures from the primary camera, colors look slightly saturated, and pictures from wide-angle camera look slightly dull, or I must say that colors look dull compared to the normal mode, and we can say that they are close to real life. But that inconsistency in the two modes seems slightly weird. Next we have some macro shots, and they look great. Even in low lighting conditions, you can take some pretty good looking macro shots. By the way, even though this phone has a 48 megapixel primary camera, by default it only takes 12 megapixel pictures. So if you want to take 48 megapixel pictures, you can do it using this dedicated 48MP mode, and these are some sample shots. Compared to the normal mode, pictures from 48MP mode look kinda dull, but they do have a lot of resolution. Now as for the selfies, just like any other previous Vivo phone, selfies do look pretty great, but I wish dynamic range could have been better. Sky is completely blown out and there is a bit of overexposure. I guess that's to be expected. Even portrait selfies looks pretty similar to regular selfies. They do look great with that background blur effect. By the way, you can also change the amount of background blur effect you want before taking a portrait selfie. As for regular portrait shots, they do come out good. Edge detection is not perfect, but it's pretty great. But I did face small problems while taking portrait shots, like the background was in focus while the subject was out of focus. But that's not really a major problem, as on this phone we can change the focus point even after taking a picture. So I guess that particular feature did save the day. By the way, Vivo still hasn't fixed their camera user interface, because that bokeh effect or the portrait shot, whatever you want to call that, have been completely messed up. So that problem has not been fixed for the past year and it still persists. Now when it comes to video recording, we can record video in 4K resolution as well. By default, when we record in 1080p resolution, by the way this is the sample footage, default stabilization is pretty decent. We also have the ultra stable mode on this phone which super stabilizes the footage. Well, here's the sample, and footage itself is pretty stable, but it has a bit of focusing issues. It can be fixed with a future update. You also have the regular front camera video recording mode, and surprisingly, you also have ultra stable mode for the front camera video recording. And here's a quick sample. So guys, now the footage is being recorded using the ultra stable mode, and you can check out the stabilization once again. So in the camera department, Vivo V19 definitely lives up to its price, or its name, whatever you want to call it. Now when it comes to performance, people really like to talk about the processor inside it and benchmark scores. Well, all that's fine. This phone has a pretty decent Snapdragon 712 processor with Adreno 618 GPU. It's also packed with 8GB of RAM. Well, that's all on the paper, and in my personal usage, I didn't notice any kind of lag whatsoever. Everything was pretty smooth, even though this phone has 8GB of RAM, or no matter how much RAM it had, everything was pretty smooth. All the apps were in memory for a brief amount of time, and if you leave your phone aside for a long time, most of the applications will be killed anyway. So overall performance, for a basic user at least, there's gonna be no problem. Everything is pretty smooth. When it comes to gaming, yes, you can't play games like PUBG at high-end graphics continuously, but if you're a normal user who wants to play some light games, then that's once again absolutely not a problem. I just used this phone for a few days right after unboxing it, and I've used it after about a month for continuously for 10 days, and I must say the overall performance has been pretty consistent and overall it is pretty smooth. There has been no lag and there has been no drop in performance throughout my regular usage. So basically, when it comes to performance, if you're looking for something that works without any problems and no hiccups, then you're good to go. Now when it comes to software, I was really surprised by what I've seen on this phone. Well, there aren't many changes. It's just that Vivo has finally ditched that control center and brought back the regular notification toggles. And I won't say it's a huge improvement. If it was any other phone or any other brand, I would probably forget about that, but for Vivo to do that, I think it's a pretty big deal. We got the notification toggles right near the notification area, and for a Vivo phone, I think it kinda feels like a very big thing. Besides that little minor change, rest of the UI is pretty similar to previous Vivo phones. You have the same old recent apps page and the same old settings page. They redesigned it a bit, but it looks pretty similar. Overall UI definitely feels much more cleaner. In terms of software experience, everything was pretty smooth. I didn't notice any bugs once again. So overall, no complaints. In fact, a huge thumbs up for Vivo for bringing out new changes. So guys, I've been using this phone for the last 10 days, and I must say the software experience has been pretty consistent from day one and up till now. Like, there aren't any bugs with the software. Everything is pretty smooth and no errors so far. By the way guys, this phone also comes with tons of software features, mainly a lot of things related to gestures, and you can check out my video on best features of Vivo V19 to know more about them. Now when it comes to audio department, audio experience over headset was good. There was nothing out of the ordinary. It was pretty good. Now here's a quick audio sample from the speaker. Speaker loudness on this phone is pretty decent. It's not super loud, but definitely loud enough for ringtones, alarms, and regular media consumption. Finally, when it comes to battery life, this phone has a large 4500 mAh battery, supports fast charging, and comes with a 33-watt Vivo Flash Charge 2.0 inside the box. You can get up to 70% of charge in about 40 minutes, which is pretty fast, and even the battery life is pretty great. For me, on my normal usage, which mostly included a lot of YouTube videos, it lasted me almost 2 days. So you can expect pretty great battery life on this phone. So you might wonder, everything's so great, then what's wrong with this phone? And there aren't many issues with this phone. In fact, there are just few things that I wish Vivo could have done. A 90Hz display perhaps. I guess that's the only flagship kind of a feature that's missing on this phone when it comes to display. The next thing would be performance. Especially online exclusive phones and online phones offer you way better performance than this phone. I guess these two are the only things that I'm slightly disappointed, or I would say these are the only two cons for this phone. So to conclude, is this a good phone or not? Should you buy it or not? Well, my answer is definitely yes. Well, if you compare this phone to a true flagship or flagship graded specs or flagship graded phones in this price segment, this phone is obviously lacking in terms of a 90Hz or 120Hz display and performance, but if you're a normal user, this phone definitely offers you everything that you want. Great in-hand feel, it's there. Great display, it's there. Decent performance for everyday usage, it's there. Great battery life, it's there. And finally, great cameras, it's still there. So overall, it's definitely a pretty great phone. So guys, what do you think about this phone? Do let me know by commenting below this video, and if you're planning to buy this phone, use the link in the description. It always helps the channel. If you want us to make any specific video, or if you have any questions about this phone, do let me know by commenting below this video and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I'm Nikhil from GreedyTech signing off. Have a nice day.